Hey, what is going on, Dr. Dave?
Dr. Joe, is that you? How the heck are you? It's been a
I'm
while.
doing pretty good. Hey, well, thank you all for tuning in and welcome to the Journeys of Not So Ordinary People podcast, where myself, Dr. Hamlett, and Dr. Dave Peltz, we talk about a lot of different topics. And if you kind of go down our playlist, you'll see we've done quite a few. So, but thank you for tuning in today. I'm getting off on a rant already. But seems like we haven't done this in a while. So I'm just excited to be here and excited to get started with our topic for today. So, like in normal fashion, like me and Dave do, one of us introduce the topic, and then the other goes ahead and starts to run with it, and then start to fill in those blanks for us. So today's topic is self-discipline. So, what are your thoughts on self-discipline today, Dave?
Self-discipline. Dr. Joe, the first thing that comes to mind is usually what we do first thing in the morning, and that's wake up.
Yep.
So self-discipline to me is not hitting the snooze 14 times. Not that I'm guilty of that, but not hitting the snooze repeatedly when you don't need to.
Right.
And then from a professional side, once you get up on time, get to work on time. So those are
Yep.
just like two very basic examples to me, personal and professional, taking care of yourself, getting up, doing what you need to do for yourself, and then do what you need to do for, the company. And I'm not saying, work yourself to death by any means. That is not what I'm
Right.
promoting, but, doing a good job, being consistent and just being disciplined to do a good job, regardless of what's going on, being able to check yourself and, set the bad things that are affecting you at the door so you can really focus on your job, or conversely at home, set the stuff at work aside so you can focus on the family or yourself. So self-discipline, yeah, it's just that it's like, I think it goes with a little bit of focus and consistency is pulled in there too. But
Absolutely.
so that's it in a nutshell. I'm just going to make that real short so we can really get into this a little bit more. So
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for that, sir. So you mentioned a lot of different things, but I like how you started with just very basic self discipline techniques or tips, and like you said, we're all guilty of that, hitting the snooze more than once. But yeah, that self discipline to get up, and you have to get your day started, and being consistent with that. We typically our bodies start to form that clock, internal clock that tells us, hey, we know we can sleep in a few extra minutes or we can't. But just that idea of the basics, just getting up on time, getting your day started, having breakfast, just doing those things that are consistent and keeping you focused. You mentioned those two topics, which I know we've covered in the past, but that's what it's all about. It's that discipline, that self discipline that says, I'm going to continue to do this because the more I do this, the more results I'm going to continue to have, the more consistency I'm going to continue to have. That's going to lead to whatever project or whatever thing I'm trying to complete.
Mhm.
Because if one of the things that we can often look at that most of us fall off of is when we, try and manage our weight or become more healthy. That one is difficult.
Mhm.
People, especially like at the beginning of the year, they start off with these huge goals of losing so many pounds or getting into shape and things like that. And they get excited about it and they have a routine for a short period of time, a couple of weeks, a month, even a couple of months, where they're doing the routines, they're getting up, going at, and then uh, eventually they fall off. And it all starts with that self discipline piece, that piece that says, "Hey, I don't want to go to the gym. I don't feel like it today. I'll just skip today. I'll sit on the couch and eat some cookies and ice cream." And so it just starts that demise of trying to fulfill that goal.
Mhm.
So it's really about overcoming all those things that come into play that start to test that self-discipline, that start to try and shift your focus to other things, and but you having that ability to continue to go down that path that you set for yourself.
Yeah, Joe, I really like what you said about the goal aspect. You brought that in. You said it, as part of your discourse, and I was thinking, wow, that's really, really big. And we've talked about goal setting before,
Right.
but in the scheme of thinking, what is my goal? Well, my goal might be to wake up or to do my job or whatever your goal is, but that self-discipline gets you to that goal. And I don't want to go off on the goal discussion, but that self-discipline is really paramount, whether it's diet, whether it's exercise, whether it's eating better, whether it's, driving, not driving on the sidewalks. I don't know. I mean, I guess if you're on a scooter, that's okay. But at work, self-discipline to do your job and not be distracted by, the people passing at the water cooler, or, taking too long at lunch. That self-discipline to get those projects done. That's really what we're talking about here. That self-discipline reaches throughout so many pieces of our lives, personally and professionally. And it really tends to be associated with goals when you think
Right.
about it,
Yep.
because the goal is to get up on time. There's a goal associated with self-discipline. Otherwise, you just get up when you feel like it, right? And
Right.
there's goals at work. Otherwise, you just go to work and sit there. There has to be a goal to get something done, a project, something, to become better. Maybe it's to get better with an application or software of some sort, or a new skill that you're working on, whether it's maybe you're learning how to use a new tool, or for driving better. I mean, just little
Right.
things like
Right.
that. I mean, there's goals that we have, and those goals are based upon the whether we achieve them or not are based a lot upon self-discipline. And
Right.
they can be
Yep.
simple or complex, but at the crux, at the core of every goal, in addition to planning and the other things, is that self-discipline to actually take the action and see that goal through to fruition. To see
Absolutely.
that return on that investment, that
Yep.
consistency, that behavioral change within us that drives us to achieve that which we are seeking to accomplish, big or
Absolutely.
small.
And I'm often reminded, I might have already mentioned this. I'm sure I have mentioned it on our previous episodes, but I'm reminded of an event, or many years ago when I was working at a corporation, and I was a maintenance supervisor, and I was putting work orders out every day for the mechanics to perform the task. And the person who was in that role previous came up to me and he said, "Hey, why are you doing that? I did that for a period of time. Nobody ever did anything." And he said, "So I don't know. You're just wasting your time." And he said, "Why do you keep doing it?" I said, "Because it was that discipline piece. I knew, like you said, my goal was to change the culture, to
Mhm.
help people understand the importance of doing this, but I had to continue to do that, on a regular basis so that they would understand I'm not going anywhere, that this is not going to change. This is the new standard. So, this is what the expectation is." And it did take a while. He was right. It did take me a while to continue to put it out there daily. And I think it was the frequency was daily. But eventually, one mechanic started responding and doing those, the next
Mhm.
one, and then the whole department had that same mindset of, okay, I've got a work order, I've got to complete, I've got to do, and it changed that culture, our organization, for
Mhm.
the better. But it was that me not giving up, because that's one of the things with self discipline, or trying to achieve that goal. And I mentioned it before, like with the, trying to get fit, we get distracted,
Mhm.
and sometimes it could derail us from trying to achieve that goal. So that I know that's difficult for a lot of us. I've started down the path of working out and doing those things, and so since that's one of those things I'm not passionate about, then I have fallen off several times.
Mhm.
Whereas other people I know have continued it throughout their entire lives, but that's again one of those things they're passionate about. So some of these things are difficult for us, and so me and Dave, we're not just throwing out there saying, "Yeah, if you just continue to do it, it's going to get easier. It's going to, you're going to start to enjoy it." Not necessarily. Some of these things are a stretch. Some of these
Mhm.
things that it will take more than just a couple of times, or sometimes even a years, for you to really understand the importance of it. But like you said, one that's very easy is just getting up in the morning,
Mhm.
knowing you have a responsibility to get to work or get to some event or whatever it is. And the discipline or self-discipline to not hit the snooze, or not, lay there beyond what you should. So we get it. It is a challenge, and sometimes there are other things that are put in front of us that we have to figure out how to overcome or go around,
Mhm.
to still maintain that self discipline.
Yeah.
So
And
we
and I
get it.
and I like where you're going with this because it reminds me of when I was going to school. And that self-discipline, that in
Yep.
light of having a full work schedule, in light of having a family, these things need to be done. That's how you complete something, is through that self-discipline,
Yep.
whether it's getting through your term in the military, or getting through the next project at work, or getting through the next difficult thing at home, or the next family vacation, or whatever, or the next outing that you go hiking on, whatever that thing is, that it for you, it's continuing to do it until you
Right.
accomplish it.
Right.
And when I and that alludes to the word try. Well, I'm going to try doing that. Well, I tried once and it didn't work. Try is very subjective. Try could just mean, let's say we're going to go, skydiving. Well, there was a time that I wanted to jump out of a perfectly good airplane, not so much anymore. So me trying to jump out of a perfectly good airplane right now might just be going to the airport. Yep, I tried,
Right.
it didn't work. I got to the airport. Trying to someone else might be, well, I got on the plane. Trying to someone else might be, well, I got on the plane, we were airborne, and I was standing at
Right.
the door
Right.
waiting to jump. That's trying. So try is a subjective word. Self-discipline, again, keep beating on that word, is to continue past those things that are stopping and hindering you,
Right.
and
Yep.
not doing the same thing over and over expecting different results, but doing the same thing over and over and incorporating your lessons that you've learned to actually make progress towards that goal, that self-discipline of not giving up and to keep going.
And that was really what I was thinking about when we think about, and you said it perfectly, that not just to continue to do the same thing over and over again to expect different results, but to implement or place those things, inside that, same self discipline that you've learned from, or things that you saw that you need to change. And because where I was just thinking was still having that self reflection piece,
Mhm.
because you've identified your goal, but like you say, you're doing this thing over and over again, but it's not working. That's when you really have to take a step back and look at, okay, so that I tried this, like you just said, I tried this, that didn't work. Maybe I'll try a different approach. But the self discipline to continue to work at it, to continue to push and move forward, I think that's very important. The way that you just stated that you're not just doing the same thing over and over again, but you're also taking those lessons learned and now putting those into play so
That's the
that it will
developmental
help
piece.
you.
As you
Yeah,
stay, your self-discipline, you learn
absolutely.
as you go along.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I don't think we said that before. So I think that's a very good, point, to bring up, is again that yeah, we don't expect you to do the same thing with, a year you're doing the same thing over and over again. It hasn't, warranted any results, or it hasn't displayed any results. Then again, that piece of it, that you still need to take a look at it, see if you're going down the right path. Maybe you are, trying, but, are you putting all your eggs in the wrong basket, or are you working down the wrong path? So I think that's very important that you apply those lessons learned, in that self discipline, that you
Mhm.
continue to do the same thing. But the one you just brought up too about school, that was also important for me, to continue to do those same things over and over again. And that's what really helped me to stay focused, and to continue and get to where I was, because I had friends that we started school at the same time, and they never finished or never got to the level I did, because they would take a break, or they weren't consistent. They'd always be playing catch up, and then while they were playing catch up, it just started to, really hit them that I won't catch up. They
Right.
start to doubt themselves, and so I know that's what helped me make it through my entire education journey. Just the fact that I had the self discipline to do it when I know I didn't want to, and late at night, missing birthdays, missing, family gatherings and all those things, because I was focused on achieving those goals.
Yeah.
So yeah,
And
that was
and and
one
and for our
place.
viewers and listeners, whether it's going to college, going to a training class, learning a new skill, practicing a new skill, that's what self-discipline is involved. What we're talking about on the personal side, because you might you're let's say you're working out, you know, your chances are you're not going to go from 160 pounds to 290, working out, being the world's biggest bodybuilder overnight. That'd be kind of
Right.
weird if you
Yep.
could. So that self-discipline, knowing that it's going to take time and you
Yep.
have to
Yep.
reflect and you have to celebrate those milestones. And
Yep.
these are all things that we've talked about, folks, in our previous episodes. Check them out. There's a plug for you. But going through the motion, knowing that it's going to be very small increments sometimes, that's where the self-discipline comes in. So when we're practicing a skill like welding or teaching or um, I don't know, painting or something like that, these things, whether it's a trade or, white collar, blue collar, doesn't matter. You have to practice these things to get better at them. And then
Right.
on the
Yep.
professional side, the same thing. If you're learning to do a report or learning to engineer something or learning to how to lead or to manage or supervise, it doesn't come overnight. These are all separate skill sets that you have to take time, have the self-discipline to get better and better and better, not just maintain status quo. That is not what self-discipline is about, is maintain status quo. So self-discipline is about self-improvement, really. At least to me it
Right.
is.
Right. Yeah.
If you're doing something, there should be a goal. And the goal
Right.
should,
Yep.
and sometimes, depending on your situation, that goal might just be to wake up and get up out of bed in the morning. For other
Right.
folks, it might be to take that next step in their career. For other folks, it might be, that next family trip or that first family trip or that first hello, whatever it is, or the first time, a child says a word. There's something that you're working towards all the
Right.
time,
No,
hopefully.
absolutely, and I think, you said it earlier, it's that goal,
Mhm.
whatever that goal is, and it could be as simple as just getting up in the morning, or it could be something planned or something, that you're trying to achieve. But I think another thing that you said that was very important is that you have to realize that it will take time,
Yeah.
but also important to celebrate those little things, those little milestones, or set it up that way so that you are not looking at this horrendous goal, 2 years or 3 years down the road, and you don't factor in any time for you to celebrate or
Right.
any milestones that you can reach, and to continue to keep you motivated to strive for whatever that end goal is. I mean, we said we didn't want to turn this into a goal thing, but that's what helps you achieve your goals. It's
Mhm.
having that self discipline to continue to do it, like you said, even though you may not see results immediately,
Mhm.
that it is the long game. We always,
It really
people
is.
always talk about the either the sprint or, the long
Marathon. Yeah.
race or the,
Yeah.
the miles or whatever they are. But that's what it is. It should be considered as a long race. It's going to take you a while.
Yeah.
Again, I said it before, we oftentimes get discouraged because we expect those results immediately, and then it starts to again play with our head, and we really start to lose that focus, lose that discipline to continue to do it because we don't see the results immediately.
Right.
So I think that's important, even though, like I said, we didn't want to make this a goal setting um podcast or episode, but it really still does tie to that
Absolutely.
significantly,
And as I
because you
reflect, I think that when we did our goal setting podcast, we focused a lot on self-discipline. So
right, right,
that's an example of how these two really go hand in hand. And
and
consistency,
absolutely,
that's another podcast that
yeah.
we've done or are going to do. And that's these things all are very tightly interwoven in that
Right.
fabric of accomplishing something.
Absolutely. Achieving our goals. That, like I said, we keep saying it, but it is just about everything we talk about on all the episodes are really so closely related, some form of fashion. And so it's really hard not to speak of something we've already talked about because it is, all. mainly encompassing for everything we talk about. It relates back to you. You're going to find yourself shuffling between some of these topics that we talked about. Like Dave just
Right.
said, we've talked about um, goal setting, where we probably reflected on self discipline and consistency and maybe focus. So these are again those common terms you're going to continue to hear us talk about, because that's what it takes for you to achieve your goals, whether they're personal, whether they're professional. It takes discipline, it takes focus, it takes consistency, it takes commitment, it takes a lot of different things. And like Dave said, we've probably talked about them before, but it's just really hard to get away with trying to separate any of these and say they're standalone, because they're not.
Yeah.
Everything we talk about is totally relatable in some form or fashion to probably previous episodes or episodes we're going to talk about in the future.
Yeah.
Um,
I think one of the pieces that we haven't really called out directly in this conversation is mitigating or eliminating or reducing distractions as part of your self-discipline, because we can be self-disciplined to accomplish a goal, and it might take us 10 years instead of 5 years because of the distractions that we've either
right. Yep.
allowed to happen or permitted to happen, which I guess is the same thing. um, but we need to really reduce or mitigate or eliminate distractions that are going to pull us away from what we're doing to maintain our self-discipline. There's commercials and stuff like that out there, and references to things being pretty and shiny and newer, better, faster type things,
Right.
and it's like, that's fine, but if you don't complete that which you've started, is that really self-discipline? And it can be argued, yes, it is, to that point, when until you had to pivot and switch gears, which is fine. But if we're always making a habit of switching and changing, and we're not accomplishing anything, is that really self-discipline? So we need to be cautious about and aware of and cognizant of these distractions, whether it's other people, other things, other elements, geography, technology, what have you. There are a lot of distractions around us at work and in our personal lives that can prevent or hinder our self-discipline. And some of those distractions can be within ourselves that we create.
Right.
Those excuses and the procrastination, the fear of failure. Those are those distractions that we need to eliminate or mitigate in order to be successful with our self-discipline.
Yeah. That's a very good point, Dave. But I also think, and I said this early on too. uh, we set our goals. Again, we have to, if we're staying consistent and have self discipline, there needs to be some intent behind it.
Correct.
So, kind of to your point, the distractions and the fear of and things like that. That's why I'll go back to the self reflection piece.
Yep.
What am I trying to gain?
Perfect. Yep.
And again, distractions may pop up, but so I may have to take a step back and say, hey, let me take a look at this. How is this going to affect me achieving my goal or getting to my end state? So,
Right.
like I just
And that's
mentioned,
where self-discipline comes in, because you need to
absolutely.
reduce the excuses, reduce the distractions.
Right,
Don't
right,
let them take over your goal and
right,
interfere with the
right.
self-discipline piece. Yeah.
Yeah, so like I just had mentioned, before, not to get on a tangent, or that wasn't my intent before, but that is still all relevant. All those things that Dave just mentioned, not getting distracted, the fear of achieving or succeeding, all those things come back to evaluating again, taking a look at it, see if I'm going down the right path. Is how is this affecting me? Should I change something? And going back to what you said previously, applying those things that you've learned from whatever that journey is for you, maintaining that self discipline. But should I change it up? Should I move it slightly to the left or right to help me achieve my goals? So it's not that, like we've just been saying throughout this episode, that we keep the self discipline, but we don't. We're not changing anything. We're
Right.
just, the expectation is that we're going to get to our goal without any changes, without any
Right.
alterations to the original goal or intent. So, yeah, we have to still think of in self discipline with intent.
Yeah.
And we've kind of gone back and forth to this over and over again. But I think it's very important to understand that you can't get anywhere unless you set that goal. That has to be first and foremost,
Yeah.
because it doesn't make
And I
sense
think we
for you
also need to
to.
keep an open mind about our, to your point, the intent of self-discipline, but keeping an open mind as to bringing in those positive changes and influences that can help expedite and make these things, make accomplishing our goal or that self-passive self-discipline more efficient and more effective.
Right,
Instead of doing the
right,
same, well, if it isn't broke, don't fix it type thing, I'm just going to keep going 5 miles an hour. Why do that when the speed limit's 75?
right,
Why? I
right,
mean, it's not the only thing. You're going to get there quicker. It's not any worse, any better. It's just
right.
quicker. So, keeping an open mind with our self-discipline and not being narrow-minded about, you can be narrow to a degree, but like we've mentioned before, anything in the extreme on either end is not necessarily the best. So you want to find that nice, comfortable middle ground to where you keep open to the possibilities. And
Right.
again,
Yep.
the self-reflection, self-evaluation, incorporating those lessons learned so that you keep that momentum going the direction you want it to.
Absolutely. That's a very good point. So we are getting very close to ending this episode. So Dave, I want to give you an opportunity to, if you have any final thoughts on this topic, self-discipline.
Yeah, I think the one of the key things about self-discipline is start small. Don't
Mm,
jump into the deep end without your floaties if you don't have to. You know, Start off walking or crawling, waking up, crawling, walking, jogging, running, sprinting,
right. Yep.
marathoning, find that natural progression. Some of us are some things we're really good at right off the bat and some things take time. So just be patient with yourself.
That's absolutely a good point, and I'm glad you brought that up because yeah, again, I think setting that goal too far down the road, it could be immediately discouraging, and so regardless of you're doing self discipline every day, you're doing what you're supposed to, but you can't see yourself getting closer to that end state, then that is definitely discouraging. So I agree with you. Uh, don't seek to become president after taking your first class
Right.
in college. I mean that's just kind of an odd example, but maybe set yourself up to class president at the college, and then go from there. But just have that in mind when you start to set those goals and think about what self-discipline really means, because it doesn't make sense to that's where it started for me. My education journey, I was looking so far down the road, I was getting distracted. So regardless of, me continue to do the same thing over and over again, the goal I had set for myself was so far down the road, I think I would have got distracted. So changing up the way I looked at it definitely helped with my self-discipline. So thank you all for tuning in to this episode of Journeys of Not So Ordinary People podcast. Thank you all for being with us, tuning in. If this is your first time, hopefully you'll come back. And if you've been listening to our episodes in the past, please share this with friends and family or people you think might gain something from this. Me and Dave enjoy doing this, so we hopefully you're gaining something out of this as well. We've talked about this in the past. This is not just your journey; it's our journey. Still, we still have long way to go, so we're not sure where this is taking us, but we're enjoying the ride, so hopefully you are too. So with
Sometimes it's the
that,
ride, not the destination.
absolutely. So with that, we would just like to encourage you to continue being your not so ordinary you.